That's deep that you say it that way, because I think a lot of us as we get older, if we don't tend to see a change, but there is a change going on. It may not be one that is so obvious and seen all the time,
Hmm.
but there are other changes that may be happening behind the scenes. That's the systemic racism that they talk about,
Hmm.
is that the system is still broken, and
Yes.
although we don't see it right away, it's still happening. And to some of us, though, it does look like things are getting better, but it may not quite be getting better. And then for Jalil's generation, this is pretty much all they know, and what they are hearing of our experiences, the older people, the seasoned people, what they went through. And they can definitely read about it, and they can talk about it, and they can be coached about it. But at the end of the day, is it's still happening, but just in a different form. Just what you
Hmm.
were saying,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that, that you still see it that way.
Yeah.
Even talk. I know you are into the social justice piece. I know,
Mhm.
because I know you.
Yes, you
Talk,
know me.
talk to us about the fairness, the education, the lack thereof in our communities. Like, I know you touched on it a little bit, but why does it continue to be this inequality issue that we're having in our communities? What is, I mean, people are our greatest resources. So are they also our resources to get us out of these things, or what do you think about that?
And I guess I'm going to put a spin on it, Kevin. Like it or not, I'm going to put a spin on it.
Okay.
Um, Being African American, um, being in healthcare, it's always been, at least here in this area, it's always been um, Susie and Becky. It
Hmm.
hasn't been a Cora.
Gotcha.
Cora was doing the housekeeping. Cora was doing the cooking. They didn't. I'm thanking God that He didn't put me in that generation because I don't do either. Um, but but when Cora came up, and just think of this: when I became a nurse, one of the things that I learned right away was when the doctor would walk up on the unit,
Hmm.
if the nurse was sitting down, she was supposed to get up, let him sit down.
Whoa.
And so I had to thank God again for making me be a nurse at the time that I did become a nurse, because I probably wouldn't have made it long in this profession. And
Hmm.
so one of the things that I did was I asked, well, why do I have to get up? I'm writing, I'm charting.
Hmm.
You just came up to the desk.
Yeah.
Um, or it's like, well, you didn't acknowledge me. Well, you didn't acknowledge me. I'm the same person, a person just like you.
Hmm.
So if you need me, I'm not a dog. You don't whistle. You say, hey, Cora, can you help me? But and so finally, I actually talked to a doctor and I said, I don't understand why I need to get up for you to sit down if I'm working and you're not. You just want to chit chat. It's like, well, that's how it's been.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that's how it's going to stay.
Right.
But we had to, that I had to change in me. And sometimes, I remember one of my patients actually hit me in the throat one time,
Whoa.
and because I was black. Like, well, I was black before you had surgery. So, and it wasn't a confusion. It was just that he's like, I'm gonna hit you. And I was like trying to move fast enough, but you didn't want a black nurse, but I was your black nurse before you went to surgery.
Wow.
So now the other part of this racial stuff
Hmm.
is I have been so discriminated against even by my own black people. I don't want a black nurse. Well, what the deuce is, you don't want a
Hmm.
black nurse. Well, what kind of nurse you want?
Right.
Um,
Right.
uh, then it's like, that's no problem, because there was always another nurse there that was not of color. Um, and they would be like, well, you're going to tell my business. for me, it's like, I know your business as long as I'm taking care of you, because once I punch out, check out, I don't know nothing about you no more.
Yeah.
But that's the thing of where when you're discriminated against by your own, it hurts more, because always, as nurses of color, we always had to prove ourselves. And it's like, well, what kind of nurse are you? I had a doctor call one time I was working in intensive care one time, and called him, and I answered the phone, and he's like, well, I want a real nurse.
Really?
I was like, a real nurse? Well, I signed RN. I'm a real nurse. And my boss had to talk to him and tell him, you don't ever do that. You don't disrespect her at all, or any nurse, because they say who they are, their title, that's what you need to know. It's not that you're going to tell somebody you need a real nurse. What kind of mess is that? I actually had a doctor say, oh, they hiring people like you now? Wow. I was like, I don't know what people like you is, but you can have a seat.
Wow.
So it's different things, but I've been in healthcare so long until, it's like, yeah, people like me. I had people tell me I was a quota. And it's like, what's a quota to you? Like, I'm not a quota. I went to school for this. I got a degree. Yeah. I took that same test as anybody else did.
Yeah.
So those things I've had happen. But I think the roughest part is being African American and not having the African American support of when they see you. It's like, oh, you a nurse? What kind of nurse are you? And I had someone say, well, you're not smart enough. But all right, I got a master's degree. I think I'm pretty smart. Yeah. And education doesn't define me, but it's like, well, if you're going to talk about how smart I am or what I do for a living, then like I bring a lot to that table. For you to sit at the table with me, you better bring your A game.
Yeah.
So that, so Jaleel, this is how Kevin and I usually talk.
I like this type of talk. It's sad because you're talking about just your experience in the medical field, but it's just like that with Black people in general, whereas business, you might not want to shop with somebody or go to a certain store because it's Black owned. So you think they're going to act a certain way, or, you might try to get a discount or something because they Black, but you want to go do that at the white store. So it's just like, it's sad to hear that you had to deal with that in the medical field.
I think too, though, Cora, again, you should be commended, because most Black women, even with dealing with the things that you've dealt with, they wouldn't have approached it the way you approached it. And it speaks to your strength. It speaks to your competency. You know where you stand and you know your credentials. Because I can probably count on both hands actually, of women that would probably curl up and bow down, even though they know that they are other person is wrong, but they just don't have that assertiveness. They don't have that confidence to stand up for themselves. So I think you speak for a select few women that will stand up to do that. And I think that if we can have people like you to really influence other young women to do that, just the same thing that Jaleel and I are trying to empower young Black men to do, is stand up and speak up for themselves. That was one of the things that drew me to Jaleel when I first met him, is that he wasn't the type of young man to kind of stand down and curl up and not feel like he was, on the same. It was like, hey, I'm a young Black man. I got opinions, I got thoughts, and so it's important that we see that and that value in our young people, and really be that resource that what I was talking about, and helping them through those processes. And for you to do that, man, if we can have people like more women, Black women like you, to stand up and help our young Black ladies, we do have a fighting chance.
And they have to want to do it. I got one more example and then I'll be quiet. as I was a teenage mom, I never had went to court in my life, so I had to go to court for child support. I believe that's what it was. So, so I remember the judge saying to me, "So, what is it you want from this court?" I said, "Well, you brought me here. Y'all had me come." I said, "What is it you want from this man? It's my husband now, but what is it you want from him? You put him in jail. I'm not going to get no child support. He's not going to be a part of this child's life. So what is it you will gain by doing this?" And he said, "Well, do you want this or not?" I said, "Not really. Thank you, sir. I'll be all right." And that's as a teenager. And you know what? I've been all right. I've been all right. It's like, if you're going to put this boyfriend of mine at that time in jail, how is he going to help with his child?
Right.
He in jail.
Right.
With the orange suit on. He can't do nothing. He can't help provide for his child because he locked up. It didn't make any sense to me.
Gotcha.
So that's just another example. It's like, well, why would you want to lock him up when he can't help me? I see that now, even today. I see these young African-American women pushing baby strollers. I see the Caucasian young ladies up early working in these restaurants. I don't see that here. And I don't know where they're at. Where are you working at? Why is it you're not working?
Mm-hmm.
Don't limit yourself because of your race and thinking that you're a baby making machine, because that's not what, I know God said be fruitful and multiply, but it's not what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see it in Jaleel, keep being strong. Because we're losing our young Black men.
Wow.
No reason.
Yeah.
No reason at all.